that. And then on the operating side, I don't know if Mayor Spicer, you want to give us any updates on what's happened since we submitted the budget to you March 31st. I know the deadline's coming up, and if you want to let us know when you're formally submitting your budget, if you have any questions or feedback on the school portion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The final budget will be submitted on April 30th, and that is the plan of action. I will alert you that some of our fixed costs have risen, such as our MWRA assessment, as well as our health insurance has gone up exponentially. So we're right now in the process of trying to readjust some numbers, and I do know our CFO, Mary Ellen Kelly, has sent out an email to all of you, as well as talking with Lincoln Lynch. Seems like on a daily basis they communicate with each other too. So the goal is to try to make it work for all of us and use our resources to the best of our ability to do some things for recovery that we can, and restore some of the things that we can, but being able to work closely and collaboratively on this process, because it is coming up a little challenging. So I'll is this my portion that I get to talk more, or do you want me to, just wait for that time?
Let's see if there's any questions or comments first. I know we'll have more time to talk about the budget in May, especially once you formally release it. I mean, I do have concerns about the CFO's email, kind of foreshadowing you're going to be cutting the school department by over $1 million. So that is troubling, especially since we tried to work that out to avoid that moment in time. But it is what it is.
Well, the reality is the money is not there, and it goes back to our original conversation regarding the 2.5% increase, and that was our original conversation. So I just want to be real clear that has always been from the onset of budget processing, that we try to keep our increase to no more than 2.5%. And as I just stated, that some of the shortfalls that are coming forth in terms of the cost of the MWRA assessment, as well as insurances, and as well as the pension. There's some cost associated with that. The good news for us is that, first of all, the school department, based on all of the ESSER 1, the ESSER 2, the ESSER 3, it's working itself out in terms of resources that are coming, roughly about $24 million. And I've learned that, the schools will be held harmless regarding enrollment, and monies that will come directly to the school department. It will not come to the city. It will come directly through the school department. So I am aware of that, and I think that's about $1.6 million. And so those are the ways in which we can shore up the shortfall, and looking at $24 million in resources over until FY 2025. I think we'll be able to cover some of the holes that we have. But to really look and say that we have it at the city level, we still are collecting Q3 tax payments. And they're not due. Q3 and Q4 are not due until May 3rd. So we're still kind of building that budget. We're still flying the ship while we're gathering the resources. Local receipts are down. All of that is a reality for our city.
Yep, no, I'm glad we're having this conversation now.
And I want to be very clear and clear to all of you and the public at home. I support schools 100%, but we've got to work together and use all of our resources. And right now, the school department has roughly, between ESSER 1, ESSER 2, ESSER 3, CARES Act funding, so forth, roughly $24 million coming.
Okay, so a couple pieces on that, and then I see some hands up. First of all, enrollment is not being held harmless. That's news to me, and is not what the Senate President told me when she called me last week. So there is a new $40 million fund for statewide that all districts can apply to. That's not until November or December. It's much appreciated, but we won't know any of that for many months. And that is by no means going to cover the Student Opportunity Act loss that we have here. So that's number one. So that was unfortunately just, I wish, but no, that's not accurate. The other piece is using federal grants that you mentioned to cover operating gaps is not allowed by the federal rules for the school portion of the money that's coming in next year. And it would also be, in my view, financial mismanagement and very troubling to do that, to plug city and state funding operating costs. So we can't do that, and that's been clear at all of our meetings. And then finally, the 2.5% number that was given in January, we've asked since January for more updates on that, never got the answers on that formally. And in fact, we're told there was a chance that would go up. So I'm hoping that chance is still there to go up, especially from the CFO through Mr. Lynch has been reported back at previous meetings that you've been, I don't remember the moments where you've been here when you haven't been, but that was a conversation that the January 2.5 number, which by the way is the lowest year-to-year change in the history of Framingham dating back to the first Obama term, even before then, that's troubling, especially in a collective bargaining year. But my point on the 2.5 is that we understand the fixed costs and the healthcare and more. We understand all those pieces, but the 2.5 was there was a chance it was going to rise, and then the email pretty much made it clear that no, that was never a chance. And the reason it was going to rise up was because of the Mass Bay lease that the CFO was involved in, and the changing hundreds of thousands of dollars there, and what that shift was going to mean for the city. So anyway, I've talked a lot more than I intended to tonight. This is on our agenda for May once you formally submit your budget. But out of respect to the other members who are waiting, I'm going to call on Ms. Maskell, followed by Mr. Epstein.
And Mr. Lynch had his
Thank
hand.
you, Mr. Chair. Sorry if you hear background noise. But the reality is that this is a really sad state of affairs. We had multiple meetings on the budget, and many of them, Mayor Spicer, you did not show up for. You did not show up for our final vote on the budget when you could have had an opportunity to talk about this. Now is the time that you want to talk about it. And the truth of the matter is, listen to your tone. The tone of your voice is very defensive. The tone of your voice is constantly, you can tell when you change, especially when we talk about finances. And the truth of the matter is, you had plenty of opportunities to be at our meetings and you chose not to be. So here we are again, just like I said a few meetings ago, you do not communicate with the school committee. You do not collaborate with the school committee. You do not work with us at all. Maybe you talk to Lincoln Lynch, and that's fine and great. But the truth of the matter is, you had plenty of opportunities to talk about this. But now, just now, we're hearing about this. And just now, like I said last time, I hope we don't see surprises when you decide on the budget. But here we are once again, getting another surprise. You're a constant surprise after surprise after surprise after surprise, even when you have plenty of opportunities to talk about this. And so you wait till the end, and here we are again. And I'm super frustrated, and I'm super tired of the way that this is handled with you. You have plenty of opportunities. Why don't you communicate with us? Why aren't you transparent? Why? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Ms. Maskell. Mr. Epstein, and then Mr. Labarge, and then Mayor, since you're mentioned directly, if you want to follow up, you're more than welcome
Now,
to.
Mr. Lynch had his hand up.
Yep, we go by the member order first, and I will definitely get to him if necessary. Mr. Epstein?
Yeah, I just had a couple of quick questions, pro forma. In the city's calculations for the FY22 budget, does it intend to use any of the stabilization fund?
Is that your question?
Yeah.
Right now, it is not planned to use any stabilization, but we're planning to try to maybe use some of our free cash, using some of our funding from the American Rescue Act. We will be using some of that and trying very hard to, balance it out as best we can.
Right. And then my question as a follow-up is the stabilization fund is a rainy day fund meant to tide us over when we're in difficult times. So I've got to ask the question, why is it not being used? Because it seems like $16 million is sitting in there untouched, and I can't imagine a more difficult time than we're in now. So, it seems like that fund is never going to be used. That's what it appears to be. And I'd really like your take on what that fund is for and why it's not being deployed now.
Well, as it's designed for, it's a rainy day fund, but we're trying to use other resources such as free cash as well as our American Rescue Act funds first and foremost in trying to balance.
Right, and if it means using the stabilization fund to get us to our budget number, is that a possible scenario in your mind?
Well, I don't know yet. I really don't. I'm not sure yet. And because once again, as you all know, the city council has the final vote. We're going to try to present a budget that makes good sense to us. And what happens, in that process is truly up to the city council.
Right. And the final question is, right now we're projecting our year-end balance, and we'll get an update on that probably next month. So we can kind of see where our budget is. It's largely salary, so it's actually pretty straightforward as you get to the end of the year and right now to project it. Now, when I tried to get the final free cash certification on number from Mary Ellen last year, I couldn't get it till November. Is there any intent on her part to produce a free cash projection now so we can see what the surplus is going to be in the FY21 city budget? Because that is a pretty big factor.
First of all, your conversations with Mary Ellen, I'm not sure about them. But one of the things that I am not seeing is a surplus. We took a tremendous budget cut in FY21 and in terms of city finances. So I'm not seeing a surplus there or being able to figure out what free cash is going to be at this point.
Yeah, my question, that final thing, and you don't need to answer this, but it seems to me any competent CFO right now, given that most of the expenses are well known and salaries are absolutely computable, should be able to produce a projection for year end. And if she doesn't, I think it just will not sit well, because we've always been left in the dark on the free cash situation, and it's been 12 million, it comes out of nowhere. So no need to answer, but it's really hard to understand why a simple projection can't be done given all of the financial ability that sits on the city side.
Thank you, Mr. Epstein. And yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that number in the charter. In the budget, the charter requires the budget include the end of year projections. Mr. Labarge?
Thank you. I'm going to be short, but maybe not exactly sweet. I'm sorry to say, I cannot take what the mayor's say at face value. Just this evening alone, Mr. Chair had to correct her on the fact about being held, the school being held harmless. The mayor broke the promise, the implicit promise that the mayor will be here on March 31st of this year for the purpose of discussing the budget. And I'm just having a problem with that. And I think I said enough. Sorry to say. Thank you.
All right. So as I said, we will have much more time on the budget in the future. Any final comments on the budget? All right. We hope, Mayor, that in the final days you can consider a change in what the CFO's email said, and we'll have continued conversations. All right. Next up on our agenda, we'll go back to you, Mayor, you're welcome to say whatever you want about the budget, but the Mayor's update as well.
Yeah, I'll go back to you.
Other topics for your update, and we'll go on to the student update.
Well, one of the encouraging things, and Dr. Tremblay alluded to this, is that